Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hi everyone. In this episode, Johnny Yang shares his experience as a Hollywood stunt performer and coordinator. Johnny is a member of the wonderful Warrior family TV show. We had a great time talking about his work with friend and stunt coordinator Brett Chan and being a part of the Hitz International team. We also had fun talking about his kung fu and wushu background and how it has helped shape his career in the stunt world. Johnny also surprises me with an in-depth conversation on karaoke. As you know, I have a special affection for any member of the Warrior family and want to shout out to Brett Chan for introducing me to such amazing individuals. As always, if you enjoy my podcast, please rate it on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Johnny. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's always nice to have another Warrior family member because I've just been so fortunate. Brett's pretty much thrown everyone my way, and I'll take whoever I can get. So
yeah. I mean, he's good about spreading the love, in that way.
Absolutely.
I just wish it didn't take us this long to get to it, but
I know you and I have played podcast tag for months now, but that's okay. You're a jet setter. You're going around the world. I mean, you got to work when work's there, right?
Yeah, it's champagne problems obviously to have. So I really can't complain. But I just thank you for taking the time and waiting, being patient with me.
Not at all. I, have a very short-lived career in the stunt community, but because of that, I have a huge affection for, stunt performers and choreographers, martial artists. So obviously, this is a conversation long time coming, and I'm super excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Please, ask away. So like you said.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I read was, and what you were kind of sharing with me was your background and your introduction into kind of that world. And I always love kind of getting to the root of it. And I loved that you grew up on, Once Upon a Time in China and a lot of the Hong Kong Kung Fu movies and things like that, because of course, very similar on this side, like Police Story, things like that. But talk to me a little about your introduction into martial arts. And so was it because of the movies, or were you just, typical Asian kid in, as you say, the 626?
626 represent. I need a 626 t-shirt. I really do.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, when because we used to burn through, there was family nights of just watching movies, back when VHSs were around, I remember there's a local supermarket that's still here, Hong Kong supermarket, and they had a video store upstairs, and we burned through that entire store. So we used to watch films all the time. So I was quite young for some of these really old ones. If you talk about like the, I don't know the names in English, but like some of them are like Legend of Condor Heroes, or if people who speak like Mandarin, it's like Eaton Tulongji. Yeah, exactly those, So we watched all of those, including all the 1980s Hong Kongs to you talk about the, early, late 80s, like 90s, like Jet Li, when you start doing Once Upon a Time in China, those things. I feel like if you're like Chinese, like you have to watch. It's just like a national, like you want to be Chinese, you have to watch Once Upon a Time in China. You just have to. But I think on a more like child level, I want to say we used to emulate Ninja Turtles a lot. So, go out into the backyard or in the front garden with my cousins and pretend to fight ninjas, and literally just imagination of being like, careful, watch out over there. There's a ninja. And like, I run over there and like beat up a ninja. And so
which turtle were you most importantly?
My favorite one was Raphael.
Of course.
The only one with a New York accent for some reason. I like the color red. It's a hard color to wear. Yeah. But that's part of why Raph was my favorite one. And So we used to play fight all the time. And my really first introduction into martial arts was I started play fighting with my cousin. And then one time while we were doing this, I remember I was just emulating things on TV, you know, and I was throwing like spin kicks at his face, and he kept like dodging back and like teasing me like, you missed. And eventually he backed into a couch and had nowhere to go. So I kicked him in the face, and I I knocked out one of his teeth.
Oh my gosh.
And when that happened, that was the moment when my dad was like, okay, like, let's put you in actual classes so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And so that's how I actually got my start and my first introduction into, which was traditional Kung Fu. That's how I actually got my real start. I did that for about 2 years. And then, that was roughly when I was about 13 or so. And I started doing very poorly in school because I learned the joys of going out and stuff. And basically, as a punishment, I was 12. My dad took it away from me as a punishment. So I was forbidden from doing any classes, you know, for about 2 years or so. And then when I started high school, and my grades came back up, you know, he was gracious enough to put me back into martial arts. And that's when I actually transitioned, because I think by that point, my Kung Fu school had my teacher had moved back to China. Okay. So I did start doing a contemporary wushu. And that became all encompassing for like my life for the next, 10 years or so. It was just like, I train. That's what I do. I train. That's what I do.
Yeah. I love that. And so what really resonates with me about that story is as a Kung Fu teacher, it's really nice to hear that you kicked someone in the face, and instead of them saying like, no more Kung Fu movies and you're not watching this anymore, instead they took you somewhere to learn things properly. And because there's always that misconception that you'll fight more if you do Kung Fu, or you'll be more aggressive. And I love that. Yeah. Of course, being, Asian and Chinese, you kind of have those, the philosophy, but it's just such a common misconception for people to think that it works in the reverse. Right. And so I love that you kind of got that background. And then talk to me about your wushu training, because I know that is very, it's like the gymnastics of sports, where it's just really intensive on the body in terms of a lot of jumping and a lot of impact and everything, but it probably has played really well into that transition into stunt performing and everything too, because you get to have kind of that acrobatic nature. When some people used to ask me, why did you do Kung Fu? Why did you do Wushu? And the really simple short answer is, I'm Chinese. And my dad said, if you're going to learn a martial arts, you're going to do a Chinese martial art. That's literally why it was Kung Fu and Wushu, and no other options besides that when I first started. So, I mean, when I was doing it, it wasn't until I was about 16, because I did it, we would go on the weekends, or because obviously I was still in school. But really, I think I hit my stride when I turned 16. And my dad was always kind of teaching me with the idea, if you're going to do something, you might as well get good at it. Why spend the money and do something and just waste your time, So when I hit 16 is when it became just, I think that's when I started doing 4 times a week as opposed to just twice on the weekends, and weekends are always hard, I feel, because a lot of times we would just do Saturday and Sundays, which is great. But then you get 5 days, unless you're training at home, you get 5 days to forget everything you've learned, So I started doing four classes a week, would go to school and then drive, my sister, bless her, would drive me through traffic, because I was training at that point in the city of Walnut, which from LA is roughly, without traffic, 30 minutes away. With traffic, it's an hour easy, due east. And so she, would go to school and drive me there. And, we would just do the training, and then, got really, really hardcore into it, and it's all I wanted to do. I remember like in high school, I was supposed to take a girl to like one of the dances that you're meant to go to. And I just told her on one of them, I was like, oh, we're going to be an hour late because I got to go train. I got to go train first. I'll come pick you up afterwards. And like, I didn't have a competition. I just had to go train. It's just what I did. I did the competition circuit for a while, met a lot of really cool people. A lot of those guys I actually met do the competition circuit are also stuntmen and doing, awesome for themselves. I'm sure.
Yeah. Wushu's definitely helped, just because, it's a very, as you say, it's a very fluid, kind of style of martial arts. There's a lot of acrobatics involved, not necessarily flipping per se, although it's changed now. But a lot of aerial kind of movements, you know, but because it's kind of complicated in the sense of you're doing wheel arms and there's a lot of spinning and twisting of the body and like, you know, trying to match legs to like circular arm movement. So it's really, really good, if nothing else, for like coordination. And so for me personally, it's really helped me transition doing stunts in just terms of like being forced to do like weird things with your body, uncoordinated things. So it's really helped me there. And it's also helped me transition into like learning other styles of martial arts, you know, even though like when you watch me do other martial arts, it is still like, oh, this one is clearly not your base style. You know, because the wushu, you just can't wipe it out. It's so
they've beaten it into you for 10 years. So well, that's the foundation work too. But it just sounds like to me as well, like do you feel like the wushu made you disciplined, or were you kind of already a disciplined individual and that's why you took to it? Or were you just like completely taken with it to have been that dedicated at, you know, because in your teens, you know, as a teacher who works with a lot of teens, you get like the mixed batch where some people don't show up for practice and other people just, you have to kick them out, go home, we're closing now, you know? So, but do you feel like the discipline that you gained from that martial arts training kind of came, like, which way did it go? Were you already disciplined, or do you feel like because of the wushu and the training that like played into building that characteristic?
I think the discipline was always kind of there. Like even when I started doing traditional kung fu first, and I was like 12, you know, and again, you know, quite, you know, young mentally and everything, you know, who knew what your work ethic is when you're that young? But when I did the classes, I still, you know, I was putting on a good sweat. I was still trying to learn, you know, so getting into Wushu, when I just decided to get more into it, just built that discipline that much harder. You know, because it became so like all encompassing, it really molded how I kind of approach anything else in life. Where it's like I said, if you're going to do something, you might as well try to get good at it. Which is why when I started coaching people, I had a really hard time because I wanted to teach people who wanted to be good, who, and, you know, and that's, like you said, you know, I know that, you know, that can be difficult. Some people, like, they skip classes or you can't really push them. And I get it that, you know, at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's not like you watch like martial arts movies where how does this school make money? But, you know, you have to run it as a business. So there is that fine line where you have to juggle how hard you can push them versus you still got to run a business. And I wasn't particularly good at that. So I had to train like older kids who you could actually push. I remember, like, you know, sometimes kids would, you know, they would go, oh man, like, you know, that you train so hard and you're so tired, you want to throw up. And I'd be like, go throw up. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Right.
Just throw up, come back, keep training.
Yeah.
I've done it. I have really bad endurance. And I used to throw up all the time. And I would just you would do a set. My endurance would run down. I would go throw up. I would come back. And by the time I'm done, it's my turn again. So I just grab a cup of water, go back out and do it. Get sick again, run back, and it's just rinse, you know. But that's just how, you know, my coach was from China. He was a famous martial arts coach, wushu, Brian Wang Zhentian. He's, you know, in there at the time when he was competing. He's from Nanjing, southern China area, and there was what they call the San Zhang Yi Wang, which is three guys. Surname is Zhang. One is named Wang, and he was the Wang. So he was famous, and he was known as Chang Wang, the Spear King in China. So that became my specialty weapon. So I took after him. And like the best compliment I ever got from him was, oh, you're starting to look a little bit like me, you know, you have a little bit of my feel. And I was like, the best, like, oh my God, compliment.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah. I was going to ask you, what was your event that was kind of your thing? So the spear. And I mean, coming from, you know, Southern, did you do a lot of Nanchen or like?
No, I didn't feel, my other friend, Paul, who was with me, we became the most senior guys. A lot of the guys who we came up with who were in college when I started, they graduated and moved on. And so we became the two most senior students. And so I was always more of the long fist, you know, flowy kind of style. Like I did spear and straight sword, and he was the like he did Nanchuan and he did like staff, versus like spear.
Right.
And then eventually I transitioned from that. I kind of got tired of just doing spear as a solo competitor, and so I started picking up spear fighting sets. I did 空手夺枪, and I was the spear, which is spear versus empty hand. And so I was the guy doing the stabbing work, and then he was the one that you do the neck one where it goes around your neck. Yeah, that stuff. That became my actual event. So eventually I stopped competing as a solo, and I would just do fighting sets. And I had become like known for that, and it was fun. Like I said, it's just a lot of fun doing and fighting. You do fighting sets there, and now in stunts, I do fighting sets on film.
Yeah. And it's been interesting because, having like a small background and understanding kind of that transition, like you said, it's interesting because you are able to kind of pick up, and it's kind of goes the same. Like if anybody is very, very versed in a martial art, it helps. But if you only, like kind of dabble, but I feel like if you're really deep into one, then it does help you kind of have that foundation, and you're able to kind of transition. So for your stunt work, especially on working like things on Warrior, where it's very Chinese martial arts and it's very like, based, but then you jump to something like Halo, where it's very, very different stylistically. How has that been for you? Like how did you get into the stunt community, and how did you decide that that's what you wanted to do?
I feel like I was, when I think back now in terms of like my academics, I think I always knew I was going to be some kind of performer, because embarrassing enough, when I was young, my older sister was a dancer. My middle sister was a singer. I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I was always doing some kind of performance. So we used to go and compete and do karaoke competitions. Yes. So when I was 11, 12 or something years old, in 626 at some of these Chinese events, they would have karaoke competitions, and I was up there singing with my sister, so I did that. And then when in high school, even though I was doing martial arts, I joined the dance team, and because they needed guys, and it just seemed something fun to do, and I really enjoyed. So I just knew I was always going to be some kind of performer. Then when I went to college, I did theater. So I think that, and then eventually it just kind of went, hey, I need to, I kind of have to pick a career. And with such a large background in martial arts, the stunt side just came a lot easier, because, you meet other, filmmakers and people who are doing short films and their thesis, and they're like, hey, oh my God, you have such a big martial arts background. Can you come and help me with this short film? Or can you come and help me with this live show? So that's kind of how I got my start and got introduced officially into the stunt world.
Excellent. And I'm going to have to ask, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my God, back then. Well, it depends now, right? If you talk about like Asian songs, back then, the singer that I used to emulate was Aaron Kwok. I had the split hair and everything. It was bad. It was bad. So I used to sing a lot of his songs, or a couple of like the Jackie Chung, like the Zheng Heyao songs. Which ones did I just sing? Oh my God, like Aaron Kwok, when he has one called 对你爱不完. And I see there's a whole dance where you do this, you do this kind of dance move. It's really simple, If you talk about like now as you get older, I mean, no matter who you ask, if you go into a karaoke place and you play Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way, everybody sings. It's a weird thing where, like, like back in the day, you think now it's like, oh man, they're so cheesy. You go to a karaoke place, you play that song, everyone knows that song. Journey, Don't Stop Believing is always a good one.
Right,
Asian, like for classic. Like Asian, I don't know if you know the song 笨小孩.
No.
With it's like a mix. It's an Andy Lau song.
Andy Lau,
song. Yeah, it's a really fun song to sing. So that's always a good one to just throw in there.
Nice. Yeah, I do know Chinese singing. I don't do any singing actually, but if I ever had like forced at gunpoint to do karaoke, I would not pick a Chinese song. It would be too painful for everyone.
What's yours? What's your go-to
I actually
karaoke?
Can't even say I've ever done karaoke. And like, so I'm thinking, when have I ever? I know it's really weird because my mom is she was in a reggae band, so she is a professional singer. And so I think I always felt like, well, I can't actually sing. And so, I am around professionals, and her and my uncles, they were in a professional band up until one of their last performances was at my wedding, actually. And, as a child, I would go to nightclubs to hear them and stuff. So I was always around very high quality musicians. So that's why I don't think I ever took to going to like karaoke or anything like that. I don't know. It'd probably be some sort of Bob Marley song, I guess.
It actually doesn't feel like it's as much fun to go, because I know some like fantastic singers, and it doesn't seem like it's actually as much fun to go to karaoke with like professional singers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you are like that you're amazing. Like if I went to a karaoke with like a Beyonce or something, right? I'd be like,
well, that would kind of be amazing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, but if let's assume that we're friends. I'm not just sitting there being like,
right.
Oh,
then it's kind of
with Beyonce. This is crazy. Like we hang out all the time, but it would be like you're so good. You can only sing like one every like 5 songs. Let the rest of us butcher stuff, and you can
be backup. You can be Beyonce. Yeah. You can be my backup.
Yeah. We're here for fun, but you're just so good. Like let us be terrible first, and you can come in every once in a while.
I don't know. I have a feeling that you're pretty good. It sounds like you won competitions and you're rehearsed. So, I mean, you're kind of like in that,
No, the other people were just that bad. I never took my sister did the singing classes and stuff like that. So she really tried to go for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I never, I kind of did for fun, because I thought it was, I like singing. I wish I had done. It would have been really great to do actual vocal lessons and, train your voice, and, because I do like to sing. Yeah. I just can't sing.
All right. So I can't wait to hear about the Warrior cast and crew karaoke party that goes down this summer. I'm gonna follow up with all you guys and make sure that
I don't
happens.
think we ever went to, because I don't think we could find one. I think we tried. I'm pretty sure there's no way.
I'm gonna get on Langley to find everybody a venue and make this happen.
Why did we never go to karaoke? Someone must have looked and we couldn't find one. Okay. But if there is one, we totally should.
Yeah,
I never thought about that.
I think that would be epic, and you have to be the leader, obviously. And in the first number will be Backstreet Boys. So
yeah, I feel really bad now to not have gone to karaoke on Warrior.
Don't worry, horrendous. we're gonna make this happen, because everyone's invited me out there, and so I'm showing up whether I'm actually invited or not. So I'll remind you. But
you're gonna come visit?
I would love to come visit. I have to call Brett again and be like, so was that invitation real? Every person I talk to is like, yeah, this would be great. But I want to hear about Hitz International and how you found Brett, and give me the deets. Like, how is he as a boss? Like, you can tell us the truth here.
Brett, honestly, Brett's become one of my best friends. I actually met him on Olympus Has Fallen, a Gerard Butler film that we filmed in Louisiana. And this was 2011 or something like that. Right. And we, on that show, we were just both fellow performers. I actually didn't realize, I had actually submitted my resume to him, because he was already coordinating by that point, okay. And I submitted myself to him in Canada, and he responds to like every email. And so we were talking, and he was just kind of like, Johnny, yeah. And I was like, didn't you send me your resume? And I was like, I did. And so that's how we met. And after that show, I just kind of kept in touch with him. I was quite intimidated by him when I first met, because that show in Louisiana I was still very new in the business. And, I was around all these guys. That show is how I met Brett, and how I met all the, in the martial arts industry, the greats, like, the James Dews, the Simon Rees, the Andy Changs and stuff like that. All the other OG stunt guys who have been in the business for years and years. After that show, I just kept in touch with Brett, and he just, like, hey, Happy New Year's, how's it going? Really easy chats. And then one day he had a job on the show that must not be named in New York, and he needed an assistant coordinator. We had a terrible time on that show. He needed an assistant coordinator, and his normal guys were not available. And so he just took a shot in the dark. I had been filming YouTube videos and short films and like teaching myself the art of filmmaking, for a while. And he had been just kind of following along, unbeknownst to me. And he just gave me a call one day and said, hey, do you want to come be my assistant coordinator? So he took a left field shot in the dark because I'd never really done anything like that before.
Okay.
And we both like agreed like this could go really well or really badly because we don't really know each other in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to spend, 12, 14, 16 hours a day with each other for the next 6 months or so. And so, so he taught me a lot on that show and, really, really just threw me into it. But I really think like, the discipline for me, the discipline from like trying to break your body doing martial arts and having that mentality really helped me on this show because, I almost broke myself trying to work on the show because it was my first try and I just really want to do a really, really good job.
Yeah.
And I think because he and I went through the trenches together in this show, that's how we kind of bonded. And then again, it just worked out really well. So then when he eventually got Warrior, that's how he then it was like, oh, I became a natural. Hey, let's go do this show in Warrior now. In terms of joining Hitz, it was never on my radar. I try not to think too much about like, I knew he was part of Hitz. I never worked with him and ever asked him about joining or, hey, how do you join? Right. I find it much easier for me to just tunnel vision on a show and I just do this and I don't think about, and I like to hope that, the hard work would just lead to more and more, down the line. And then so again, because of, I think how hard he saw me working and just how well we gelled and loyalty, he's very big on loyalty. So I don't know, maybe the fact that I stuck with him through all of that was kind of like, wow, like John, like Johnny can hang. So then he, at the end of the show, he asked me to join and I was like, I had such a good time working with him. I said, yes. And I saw the stuff that all the other guys around the world were working on and have worked on. And I was like, what a cool place to be a part of. And, because they are actually like an international group. I've been lucky enough to like travel the world, which is great because I also love traveling. So it just kind of melded like my life together.
Amazing. Yeah. And everybody I talk to just can't stop talking about how amazing Brett is. And having gotten the honor of interviewing him, I knew that was going to be a very positive answer, but I had to give you a hard time about it.
Yeah. He is an absolute machine. If anything else, I would tell him, I've told him this before and he knows it. I was like, the negative I would say about him is he works too hard. He is a machine, that guy. And so that can be the only thing. He expects a lot from, because he gives so much. He does have high expectations. He doesn't allow you when you work with him to just coast because he wants, but it comes from a place of love because he wants you to get better. Anytime you do a show with him, he does want you to come off that show being better than you came in. And the only way to do that is to be pushed. So he is a hard taskmaster, but in a good way. He's not abusive about it. He doesn't believe and I don't either. You do not have to lead with fear. You can lead by respect. If I'm working for someone begrudgingly and only because I'm afraid of him, I work hard because that's just my work ethic, but you do not get that extra 10, 20, 30% and the extra mile because you're abusing me. Why would I hurt myself that much more to help you? So that's the kind of family vibe that Brett like cultivates, where you want to help him because you can tell that he wants to help you and he's trying to help you.
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. And the work shows as well, right? So seeing the result of all that hard work is very, very evident. And, getting acclaim as well and nominations and all of that, it's not by accident and it only happens through hard work. And I was curious because, and I don't need you to go like into too much detail, but, you talk about like that horrible experience, and I think a lot of people are really curious about these behind the scenes and what happens, like what makes something coming off a set, you saying, wow, that was something special. Because everyone I've spoken to on Warrior, like clearly friendships have been made that will be lifelong. Clearly there's been something really special about working on a show like that. And then when you mentioned you and Brett meeting and kind of going through the trenches, like what makes a good experience on set and what makes a bad experience?
Warrior was just like again, maybe I'm just like reaping rhapsodic on Warrior, but I had such a good time and I love the people on it. But it just had this feel like everyone came in and everyone was so good natured, from the cast to the crew to the production side. Like, we all knew we were coming to do this thing and we all wanted this thing to be good. So everyone was down for the hard work, and to do whatever they could to try to make it good. So I feel like the passion and the love for the show and the art was really there. A big part of it, at least from like our side, comes from the production side, because we obviously have our bosses to answer to. And then if you have bad bosses, then you have a much harder time, and I do think there is something to be said about having, you talk about like other stunt people and other coordinators about things like this, and they'll have obviously much more to say because they've had a much longer and bigger career than I have. But a lot of it just comes down to, I feel like, ego on the creative side. I think it's changing now because a lot of stunt coordinators and stunt performers are becoming filmmakers,
right?
And they're becoming directors, so the knowledge is a lot bigger. So it's much harder nowadays to just have a stunt person come in or a coordinator come in, create an action, and then be pushed to the side as if like you just do stunts, you don't know what filmmaking is, go away. I feel like that's a much older mentality. But then when you encounter people like that who are kind of like, oh, I know better than you, and I'm not going to really take, you can create the action, but beyond that, I'm just going to push you to the side. And that makes it for a very difficult like working environment, because it's like, we specialize. Stunts is our thing in all that encompasses, and that's what we specialize in. So yes, we do know, but there can be a lot of like either, producers, directors, writers, whoever, who think they know more than you, because sometimes I think in the older mentality, like I said, oh, you kind of just fall down for a living. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So people have no idea the falling down is like the worst part. This is the hardest part. Like the things that look easy, are always like the hard things,
Yeah.
Not that wielding a sword isn't hard, but once you have the skill, but like falling down the stairs or something, it's just like, oh no, here we go, things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
to make it look easy, or to make it look like, realistic.
And who knows how many, you never hear the behind the stories of like, wow, like that stair fall was great. It's like, yeah, we did that 26 times.
And they took they used take number 2.
No, yeah, exactly. Which take they would do the first one. Oh my God. So that can be,
the wear and tear is rough.
Yeah, on Warrior though, they're very great because they came in, and they rely very heavily, and they trust that. I think the big thing is trust. They trust Brett, and they trust the team that he put together to come in and do the job, so that when we come on set, and Brett is obviously our second unit director on the show. And so he is allowed to just second direct, and it just goes down the line of trust. So when he does that, I tend to become the stunt coordinator on his unit, and he trusts me to go and run the unit. And then so it just leads to a much more like, smooth flowing project, whereas when we were over on the show that must not be named, right? Everybody knows it's Iron Fist. Everybody knows it's Iron Fist. We have the very dubious honor of being both the worst fights on TV and the best fights on TV. The main difference of the two is the amount of trust and hard work that was put into each show. And
the results show.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't even compare, the two in terms of how the approach from the production side to stunts versus Warrior's, approach to it. They obviously know that Brett is, and it really helps that, JT has a martial arts background as well. But I feel like they understand, Brett is the expert. He's the actual expert on this. So why not lean on the experts? Yeah. And it comes down to a lot of, it's from the creative side to the choreography side, to the filmmaking side, to the camera work and stuff like that. We obviously get our parameters, but then they trust Brett to go and use those parameters and come up with something, good. Whereas some other shows, it can be just where we do all the work and they go, okay, now that we're going to film it, you go away and let the adults handle it. And, a lot of times, I'm sorry, like that's not their specialty. So they don't really know. I remember I did a show in China and I asked the DP, because I've never worked out there before. And I said, hey, just out of curiosity, I'm curious to hear how you guys work here in China. We've done the previs. Do you guys even shoot the previs? Do you guys like, and then his reply was, yeah, why wouldn't we? He went, you guys have picked, some of the best angles. Why wouldn't we use it? Mm-hmm. Like, that's silly. They'll have other cameras playing, but he said like one camera, they would always have filming the previous angles that they like, because why not use it? Whereas I've worked on some shows where I've seen them actively avoid the previous angles because they want to be able to say the ones that, they shot it,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
it's just counterintuitive to me in that way, because like, if the show is good, it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not like if the action is good and then you get pushed aside. No, we all look good. The entire show, from every department, everyone looks good. So why not do whatever is best for the show and just put your ego aside?
Yeah, that's often difficult in the industry, right? And that's why it's so magical when something does hit. So, speaking of Warrior, and when I kind of came to watching the show and just kind of binging through it, and it came to my attention, it was like kind of this kismet of timing where the show's themes really resonates with a lot of the issues that are happening now, and how historically things are not necessarily changing or have gone backwards. So, obviously we get a lot of the racism that's happening, but also the anti-Asian sentiment. And of course, these last couple of years during the pandemic has been extremely trying for the Asian community worldwide, but, especially here with the AAPI community. Literally just yesterday or 2 days ago, there's more attacks, especially on women. And that's something that I've obviously been very outspoken about. I'm literally writing a bill here in Florida to, include Asian American history in schools. And I'm very involved in this. And it's been really amazing to see a lot of the people from Warrior speaking out. And, Perry and I ended up at a rally together when I was in New York. So maybe that's why you thought I lived in New York.
Oh, amazing.
Like
amazing.
He's, so it's just been really great to kind of see how the parallels between the themes of the show are happening, but also like just what's happening right now in the world. And, just as a temp check, just checking in, like, how have you been personally during the last couple of years of the pandemic? I know you've been working, but, just seeing all of that dynamic, it affects all of us so differently. So, how has that been for you?
It honestly, it made me very angry for a while. I remember we had during the pandemic, 2020, when we were in the thick of it, when Hollywood and the world basically went on like a 2 to 4 month like hiatus. So I spent a lot of time, in quarantine, watching the news and stuff like that. And just everything that I saw, I remember like I had never been so angry watching the news and just seeing, all the anti-Asian sentiment that was going on. And, so I remember I had to take a step back and stop watching the news for a little bit, because I was like, oh, this is actually very negative for like my soul. Like, it hurts to watch it, and like, it's important to watch it, so you do, but I also didn't want to just have it just completely warp my entire like being. So I remember I had to step away and just watch it sparingly or not divulge, because literally I would just leave it on.
No, that's definitely not healthy.
On computer TV, and they would just play all day long, just 8 hours all day long, especially when I was during quarantine. I was in Santa Fe at the time in my hotel room, and I would just leave it on all day and just see everything that was going on, and so it was, it was bad. But at the same time, I've been lucky to have been working and been away. So I also have something else that was taking up my time. And then obviously, because I was out of the country, it's much harder to follow, stuff that's happening back here stateside. It's I completely lost my train of thought, but no, but it's so cool. I wish, I remember one of the episodes of Warrior, it was season 2, and when I was watching the show while everything was happening, and it's the standalone episode, and one of the lines on the show, and it's one of the cowboys, he says something along the lines of, oh, that's the problem with, the America, these damn Chinese are everywhere these days, something like that, to paraphrase it. Right. And, that's what, this show takes place in, ours was early 1900s, late 18, like 75 or something like that. And it's like, oh my God, is that, is this being written then or like today? From what's happening. So yeah, like you said, it was a strange thing for Warrior to be pushed and get released while it all happened. So it felt very topical, in the moment. And if anything, if it feels like it was a good, on that side, it fit with the time, but on the good side, it was also refreshing to see, like on the show, they were very cognizant of trying to make Asians cool and sexy and not just, and strong, and try not to, lean into like too many stereotypes as much as they possibly can. And so it was also a good show to watch, I feel, for me, to also like raise my morale, on the AIPI side.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, as somebody who grew up here, was born in the States and everything, it's always been an issue of seeing yourself represented on screen. And, and I think that maybe that is part of the reason I also shied away from Hollywood at the time. I don't want to date myself too much, but at that time, there just wasn't really roles that were anything that I felt could fit for me, right? And so I just didn't feel like the opportunities were there, but also, there was my traditional Chinese kung fu background in Hollywood. They just did not really like mesh very well at the time. And I feel like we're finally at a point where there's so many more changes, since we're seeing Asian Americans or actors or Asians being portrayed as people in film versus an Asian person stereotyped with because of this. I mean, and I get it. Like if you have an Asian person running a Chinese grocery store or something like that in Chinatown, of course you're casting, but it was refreshing, Warrior, also to see that, the Asians weren't all just the good people or just the bad people. It wasn't like this race against that race. It was just like showing each actor as a human, right? And so you see humans have so many different dimensions. So just kind of portraying them as you would see any other film, as characters, that's really refreshing. And of course, there's just a handful of films that have finally been doing that. And, in the last, 5 years or so, we're finally seeing where it's not just, this is a role for only an Asian person written because XYZ. It's like, oh, wait, this superhero could be, or this person could be, or that person, or, it doesn't have to be, written that way. And I feel like there is finally a bit of a shift. I think we still have an extraordinarily long way to go, but I mean, as part of the BIPOC community, all people of color have always struggled with seeing themselves represented positively, in a way that makes you feel represented. So 100%, I know that, listeners have chimed in that they feel represented or they feel positive, and it has been something uplifting, even though the themes hit a little close to home and it's been a little painful. Be like, oh, wow, I guess we really have not evolved at all as a society here in America. We're still struggling with a lot of the issues. What really hit home was that we're watching an awesome, freaking entertaining, amazing show, but also that we're all represented, and I think that was just something really, really special. And so we're very excited for season 3. And I'm Hoon and I have been playing text tag now for our second podcast, because I know he's quite busy. But I want to.
I just spoke with him yesterday. Funny you bring him up. I literally was just on the phone with him yesterday for like 30 minutes or so.
He's been great. Like it's been just kind of surreal to be able to kind of build some great rapport with a lot of the cast and the crew. And so it's been really nice. But it's a special show for the times, but also kind of for us as Asians watching the show, right? It's very important. And I think I'm really glad that that push, the fans and everybody pushing to get it to come back and everything was really important. So I'm very excited for it. And so talk to me a little bit about what's next for Johnny. Like, I know, like you said, you did the stunt work, and that takes a toll on you. And a lot of people end up going into coordinating or directing, or, do you have kind of different things in your tunnel vision? Do you have new goals, or are you just kind of going with the flow?
It's probably a little bit of column A, column B, again, with Brett's influence, I've been really fortunate to work with people who want the people around them to grow, like Brett, who continues to push me and wants me to do well. So he's always trying to find a way to lift, he wants to climb, and he wants us to be behind him and climb with him the entire time. So really through working on Warrior, because they lean so heavily on Brett, and then, to a smaller extension myself, I've gotten to really see firsthand and be, as close as I can be, without being obtrusive, to the directors and the storytelling And I find that side so fascinating. So it's really like helped me as a stunt performer, as a stunt coordinator, as a filmmaker to try to like, oh, where's the story, and where's it going? Whose story are you trying to tell in that moment, in that shot, and then so I'm finding more and more the directing side really, really fascinating. So, I'm always like on set, like kind of just like, off on the side, like watching and being like, oh, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? Just trying to absorb as much as I can. Down the line, it feels like the natural transition for, stunts tends to be you're a performer, then you become like an assistant or like a fight coordinator, and then you become a coordinator yourself, then you become a second unit director. And then if you can push past that barrier, then become a director, producer, and all that. So that just seems to be the kind of natural path that we tend to go. And I would love to follow that path. Again, I find the storytelling element as gratifying as the action element now when we work on shows. And, same thing is just, changing a shot or a camera angle or a cut, an edit at this point, can alter the story that you're trying to tell. We used to always say when people talk about how important camera work and the story that you're telling is like, you can take the best screen fighter that there is, and you can completely ruin him with bad camera angles and bad editing, so so because of that, I see it's so important that, I'm trying to grow in that sense as much as I can. So, that's what I really want to do. And like I said, Warrior is such a great place for it because they allow me, like I said, when I'm on set, it's not just like, Johnny, go away.
You get to learn.
I can be right next to the directors.
It's awesome.
And we bring on fantastic directors, to come work on the show. And so I'm always there, and same with our DP. So I'm always there next to them, and I've never been like told to go away. Maybe they want to, and they just have never said it.
They're like, I don't think I can use swords and stuff, so maybe we'll just.
That still works in my favor. So that's it. So they've been, they're always there, and I've kept in touch with some of the directors, and when I ask for advice about stuff, and they've been always gracious enough to answer me back and give me their advice, to also same thing to just help me grow. So I want to say that's where I want to go. Who knows if I'll get there. I remember one of my friends, Lynn Oding, who was a stunt performer turned coordinator.
The last project I ever worked on was Lynn was on, and Andy Chang was the stunt coordinator for the last stunt thing I ever did.
Oh, okay. That tells
you how long ago it was.
Yeah.
So Lynn's directing awesome. Now.
Yeah. And I don't know where I was going with this. I owe a lot to him. He's been very good to me,
well, he's a great director and resource for learning and stuff too.
Yeah. And same thing, like, I'll message him once in a while to like ask for advice, and, because he's doing what he is doing what he's doing. And he told me, one time he said, like, you won't know until you try it. Try directing, something like really like a short or, something like small, but as an actual director, and see if you like it. Cause like, you might not, you might do it and be like, never mind. I'd rather be a coordinator or second director, but he said, you won't really know until you really get thrown into it. I've done like, we've all these, YouTube short films and like action films and stuff like that, but it's not the same when you're just calling your stunt buddies to come out and do, it's not the same as doing a proper, an actual, short film with. So it's completely different. This is what he was telling me. And he says, you won't know until you try it.
Yeah, that's true. But that's always kind of a catch-22, because it's not like, oh, you can just sign up to get that opportunity, right? Like it's something that like has to align, and then you have to kind of vie for it. I mean, unless people are just dropping directing jobs. I mean,
I say this and I say that. I'm sorry. No, I wish I would be incredibly, surprised and honored if someone were like, hey, I want you to come work this thing. I'll be incredibly nervous at the same time with the very stoic,
I totally know what I'm doing.
No problem at all. No, in terms of like just being an indie filmmaker and then creating and shooting your own, I have friends who are writers, and working with them to, come up with something and write something that, we can work on together, that I can like try and direct, when I get a chance. I've been both fortunately and unfortunately too busy. Yes,
I know you've been busy.
Prep time.
We've been trying to connect, and you've been jet setting and working. But I mean, I find that it's like anything else. Like if you're busy, that's a good thing, because you just never know too, like when I mean, especially with COVID, like everything's shut down. And so, I mean, it's kind of like one of those, like if there's work, you take it, right? Like it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had coordinators tell me when I was like working, it's like, great, take the job, save the money because we didn't, this is earlier on because they were like, we have no idea if we're going to nobody knows. Like we could have shut down for like a year or something. So it was like, if you're working right now, it's like work and then hoard the money just in case is what like some other like people told me when I was lucky enough to still be working through.
Yeah. It was definitely a crazy time. And it was really interesting to kind of see the creative ways people were kind of starting to come back to work and what they had to do. Like I loved watching some of the, behind the scenes, like what they do a little bit documentary work on like, oh, here's how we got around COVID and, what they would, the different changes it had to make. And hopefully we'll see that shift now where everything's kind of normalizing again and we can, proceed through life safely and responsibly, but also in some way normal, right? Like hopefully things are kind of returning to
some form of normalcy
would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever that means at this point.
I love, because I know we're running out of time. I love asking all my stunt friends, like, is it hard for you to watch action and just enjoy it without dissecting it?
Yeah.
It's pretty much impossible.
It's so difficult to just turn your brain off. But at the same time, it's because of what I want to do when I'm watching a film. Other than the action, I'm also kind of aware of what's on the screen beyond just the action stuff. So I'm always like, that's interesting that shot was like that, so instead of just watching and being like, and being immersed in it, you're kind of dissecting the entire film as a whole, and to the point where I've gone, I've like, there are some films that when I saw, I was blown away by, and I've rewatched it and gone through it like scene by scene, just to study the film, be like, wow, that's so cool that they did this, or,
for example,
that's interesting that this was there. I remember the last time I did that was for Knives Out.
Okay.
I just there's something about that film, and I love and hate him that he wrote it as well, that he wrote and directed. You know what I mean? It's not, he didn't just direct it. Oh my God, he wrote an amazing. And I just love, because I remember when I was watching it, just something about the presentation. And I remember watching some behind the scenes of how he set up shots and where he would put the actors. And it was very aware, like, we always want to make sure, we've got like, these actors here, and behind, I want this, and behind them, I want this. So it's that choreography, and that blocking that's like really interesting to me. That 1917.
Right.
Was as from a technical standpoint,
I was blown away as well. Yeah.
I don't know anything. Yeah, I've seen that 2-3 times and just gone through, and I've watched all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Because
you're like, okay, that's one cut. That's because there's just not that many when you think about it, but you're like kind of looking for all the
like, oh, that's obviously a wipe. We all know that. We all know how to cheat the stitch, with a wipe, stuff like that. But some of the other ones where it's not, and to see like, wow, I wonder why. And I wish I could ask them like, why did you do a cut there?
Yeah.
When it was like, well, I just want to know like the logistical reasons, because it can only help you like, understand the visual effects aspect side of it, like working on Warrior is great and all. But when we did like Halo was such a big wire explosions, VFX, stuff like that, and so, it's just a different mindset that with its own set of rules that you have to learn about, like, oh, we can't do this because the restrictions on the visual effects side means you cannot. So we had to figure out ways to work around it, which presented a lot of its own challenges. So learning things like that when I watch behind the scenes of shows like 1917 lets me, oh, I see. So when this happens, you can't because of this, and you just apply that to, other jobs that you go on. But yes, 1917, it was one of the few times when the Oscars came around that I had a real horse in the race, and I was just like, he better win. and they announced Roger Deakins. I was like, yes. He deserved. Oh my! It was just ridiculous.
I agree, and I most people around me have not seen it, and so I've been waiting. When you're just like, "What? You mean you haven't seen it?" You're just so excited about something that is refreshing that you haven't like felt that way about in a while. And I get that with the Knives Out too, because it's something kind of different, right? And so it's always refreshing and exciting. But I hear you, and you're like, you get to cheer for something, and it's kind of like when the awards come around. There was one year, I don't remember which one it was, but it was like every movie was really depressing. Because you vote in the SAG Awards, and I'm like, man. I'm one of those, like, when it comes to real voting for like government stuff, when it comes to SAG, whatever I'm voting for, I'm like a stickler for rules. I'm like, I have to watch every film so that I can be informed. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to make it this season. It was like, everything was just like, just a downer. And I was like, so
I think because when did was 1917
I don't know if it was the year that Parasite came out, or it was just one year where everything was just so sad.
I think that year with 1917, and it was one of the few years, but maybe it was because of the pandemic, so we had more time on our hands, where I actually was able to watch every film that was in the category. And so that's why I was really like invested in it, just because I'm like, this one, definitely. Come on, you guys. This one has to be. And again, watching the behind the scenes stuff with like when they built the little lights and, to like see how the shadows would go. And they built that giant light fireball tower, like just like things like that. And I was like, come on, how can he not? What does he have to do? And one of my other DP friends and producers were saying like they feel like their joke is, because at the time they had done like Birdman, the other like long Warner shows, and like they feel like Deakins must have just at some point was like, oh, you want to see a Warner movie? I'll show you a Warner movie. And then he made 1917.
That was no, I'm with you there. Like, yes, I felt the same way. So I'm glad that we could share in that.
Yeah. I think like in my head, I mean, that's the last time I took a movie and like I went and
dissected it.
Dissected it down. Yeah.
No,
that was a while ago.
Yeah, no, definitely well deserved and everything. So, well, hopefully you'll come back and talk to me again, and it won't take like 6 or 7 months, but if it does, that's fine too.
Yeah. I mean, we can do it live if you come out and visit us in Cape Town.
Right.
Apparently, other people are extending you the invitation, so I would be remiss if I didn't. So hey, you should come.
There we go.
Because we'd be like, everyone invited me except for Johnny.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm writing that down right now. Johnny is the only one that invited me, and I'll remember that. No, and then we'll have the karaoke party.
Yeah, I'm gonna look now. Now that you bring, I am gonna look.
I'm trying to like calculate the time. I'm like, is it too late to text Langley? Because he's been so cool, and so I'm like, you're the local here, poor guy. He's got to be the resource for everything, right? Yeah, can you imagine? He'd be like, I love karaoke. I'm there. I was like, I'm here right now. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Perhaps off air we'll make that call. So, well, Johnny, good luck with everything you're doing, and it's awesome work. And we're excited for Warrior season 3, and of course Halo and all the other stuff that's coming out. And I'll link all the good stuff here for everybody so they can learn more about you and Hitz International. And it was a pleasure to finally meet you. Yeah, same. Thank you for having me. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.